The plane was late. Declan Ward stood on the frozen tarmac of his private airfield, watching the gray Montana sky and wondering if this was a sign. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe the agency had reconsidered. Maybe someone with sense had intervened and told her the truth about what she was getting into. He pulled his green flannel jacket tighter against the wind. Behind him, his ranch foreman, Pete Jackson, leaned against the truck with his arms crossed. "Still time to call it off, boss," Pete said. Declan shook his head. He'd made his decision 6 months ago, sitting alone in his massive ranch house on his 34th birthday. He'd built a tech fortune by 28, bought 15,000 acres in Montana by 30, and spent the last 4 years proving he could run a successful cattle operation. He had everything except someone to share it with. Dating was impossible. Women either wanted his money or couldn't handle the isolation. The ranch was 20 miles from the nearest town, and winter here meant weeks without seeing another soul. He needed someone practical. Someone who understood this was about partnership, not romance. The agency had been straightforward. They specialized in practical arrangements. No pretense of love at first sight. Just honest people looking for honest situations. He'd filled out the paperwork, listed his requirements. Hardworking, resilient, comfortable with isolation, no interest in his wealth. Then the small plane appeared through the clouds. Declan's stomach tightened as it descended. This was really happening. In a few minutes, a stranger would step off that plane and become his wife. They'd already handled the legal paperwork remotely. She was already legally Amelia Ward. He just hadn't met her yet. The plane touched down smoothly and taxied toward them. Pete straightened up. "You sure about this?" Pete asked one more time. "Too late now," Declan muttered. The plane door opened. The small staircase extended. Then she appeared. Declan's breath caught in his chest. The woman who emerged wore a red wool coat that stood out brilliantly against the white snow. Her skin was a rich brown, and her natural hair formed a halo of curls around her face. She carried a single suitcase, but she moved with a grace that made the simple action look elegant. She was beautiful. Stunningly, impossibly beautiful. This had to be a mistake. Declan strode forward as she descended the stairs. She looked up and their eyes met. Hers were warm brown, intelligent, taking in everything. "Stop," Declan said, his voice harsher than he intended. "There's been an error." She reached the bottom step and set down her suitcase. "Hello, Declan. I'm Amelia Cross. Well, Amelia Ward now, I suppose." "You can't be the woman the agency sent," Declan said flatly. "You're not what I ordered." He regretted the words immediately. They sounded cruel, transactional. But she didn't flinch. "I'm exactly who they sent," Amelia said calmly. "I filled out the same paperwork you did. I agreed to the same terms. The paperwork said you understood what you were getting into. Hard work. Isolation. A business arrangement." Declan gestured at her. "You look like you should be in Boston society, not mucking out horse stalls." "Looks can be deceiving," Amelia replied. Her voice remained steady, but he saw something flash in her eyes. Anger? "I grew up in 12 different foster homes in Boston. I've cleaned, cooked, worked, and survived things you probably can't imagine. I know exactly what hard work means." Pete had walked over now. He tipped his hat to Amelia. "Ma'am. I'm Pete Jackson, the foreman here." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Jackson," Amelia said, shaking his hand firmly. Declan ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "This doesn't make sense. Why would someone like you need this arrangement? You could marry anyone." "Could I?" Amelia asked quietly. "Beauty doesn't pay rent. It doesn't provide stability. And in my experience, it mostly brings the wrong kind of attention." She picked up her suitcase. "I chose this arrangement for the same reason you did. I want a partnership. A real home. A place where I can work hard and build something that matters. The agency said you offered all of that. But I specified someone plain," Declan said, then immediately felt like an idiot. "I didn't mean that as an insult. I meant someone who wouldn't have other options. Someone who'd need this as much as I do." "I need this," Amelia said firmly. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And I don't quit. Ever. So you can either take me back to the house and let me prove I can handle your ranch, or you can put me back on that plane and explain to the agency why you're rejecting your legal wife without giving her a chance. Are you someone who believes in second chances and unlikely love stories? Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments if you think Amelia should stay or go. Would you take a chance on love that starts with a contract?" Declan stared at her. She met his gaze without wavering. There was steel beneath that beautiful exterior. Maybe she was tougher than she looked. "Fine," he said. But I'm not going easy on you. Ranch work starts at 5 in the morning. We're calving season right now, which means sleepless nights and emergencies. The house is big but basic. No staff except Pete and the ranch hands, and they live in the bunkhouse. You'll handle all the house duties plus help with ranch operations. If you can't handle it, you tell me and we'll arrange an annulment. I can handle it, Amelia said. Pete grabbed her suitcase before she could protest. Welcome to the Ward Ranch, ma'am. It's a good place, hard as it is. They walked to the truck, a sturdy vehicle caked with mud and road salt. Amelia climbed into the back seat without complaint. As Declan drove away from the airfield, he watched her in the rearview mirror. She was looking out the window at the endless white landscape, the distant mountains, the occasional cluster of cattle huddled against the cold. Most people found this landscape desolate. Declan loved it, but he understood he was unusual. He waited for Amelia to show signs of regret or fear. Instead she smiled. It's beautiful, she said softly. I've never seen so much space. Wait until you've been snowed in for 3 weeks, Declan said. Then tell me how beautiful it is. I grew up sharing a bedroom with 5 other girls in most of my foster homes, Amelia replied. Space sounds like heaven. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. The ranch house finally came into view, a sprawling 2-story structure built from logs and stone. Smoke rose from the chimney. Solar panels lined the roof, and a massive satellite dish ensured internet connection. It's not fancy, Declan warned as he parked. Built for function, not style. Amelia stepped out of the truck and looked up at the house. It's wonderful. Pete carried her suitcase to the front door. I'll leave you two to get settled. Boss, remember we've got that fence section to check before dark. I remember, Declan said. Give me 30 minutes. Inside, the house was warm from the wood-burning stove in the main living area. The furniture was practical and masculine, all leather and heavy wood. The kitchen was large and well-equipped. Declan had spared no expense on appliances, though he barely knew how to use most of them. Your room is upstairs, Declan said, leading the way. I'm in the master bedroom at the end of the hall. You'll have the guest room. It has its own bathroom. He opened the door to a spacious room with a queen bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the front pastures. It was clean but impersonal. It's perfect, Amelia said. She set her suitcase on the bed. Thank you. The arrangement is separate rooms until we both decide otherwise, Declan said stiffly. This is a business partnership first. Anything else would have to be mutual choice. I understand, Amelia said. That suits me fine. Declan nodded. An awkward silence stretched between them. He'd imagined this moment would be straightforward, practical. Instead, he felt off balance, unsure how to act around this woman who was legally his wife but still a complete stranger. I need to go check that fence line, he said finally. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourself to anything. I'll be back around dark. Can I come with you? Amelia asked. Declan blinked. To check fence. You said ranch work starts tomorrow at 5. I'd like to see what I'm getting into. It's cold. Muddy. Boring. I'll dress warm, Amelia said. 10 minutes later, she reappeared in jeans, boots, and a heavy jacket. She tied her hair back and looked ready for work. Declan couldn't find a reason to refuse, so he led her back to the truck where Pete was waiting. Mrs. Ward is joining us, Declan said. Pete's eyebrows rose but he said nothing. They drove out to the southern pasture where a section of fence bordered the neighboring property. The wind had picked up and the temperature was dropping fast. What are we looking for? Amelia asked as they walked the fence line. Breaks, weak spots, places where cattle might push through, Pete explained. Winter is hard on everything out here. We check regularly. Amelia followed along, watching carefully. When they found a section where the wire had come loose, she immediately crouched down to examine it. This post is rotting at the base, she observed. The wire's fine, but the post won't hold much longer. Declan and Pete exchanged glances. She was right. Good eye, Pete said. They spent the next hour marking problem spots. Amelia asked questions constantly, wanting to understand why things failed and how to prevent it. She didn't complain about the cold or the wind. When they finished, her cheeks were red from the weather, but she seemed energized rather than exhausted. Back at the truck, Pete said, Ma'am, you catch on quick. Most people from the city don't notice half what you spotted. I'm good at noticing things, Amelia said. Had to be, growing up how I did. You learn to spot problems before they get worse. As they drove back to the ranch house, the sun was setting, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. Amelia pressed her face to the window, watching. Still beautiful? Declan asked, his tone softer than before. Even more so, Amelia said. That night, Declan made a simple dinner of steak and potatoes while Amelia unpacked. When she came downstairs, she immediately started helping, setting the table and pouring water without being asked. They ate in uncomfortable silence. Declan kept sneaking glances at her, still trying to reconcile his expectations with reality. She was supposed to be plain, forgettable, easy to overlook. Instead, she filled the room with her presence. Tell me about the ranch, Amelia said finally. How did you end up here? So Declan talked. He explained his tech startup, the sale that made him wealthy, the feeling of emptiness that followed. He'd grown up visiting his grandparents' small farm in Idaho. After his parents died in a car accident 4 years ago, he'd realized he wanted land, space, something real to build. Most people thought I was crazy, Declan admitted. Walking away from Silicon Valley to raise cattle in Montana. Were you happy there? Amelia asked. No. Then you weren't crazy. She smiled. Are you happy here? Declan considered the question. Happier. But lonely. That's why you arranged for a wife, Amelia said. It wasn't a question. Yes. What about you? Why did you choose this? Amelia was quiet for a long moment. I aged out of foster care at 18. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through community college. Got a degree in social work. Spent 6 years trying to help kids like me. She paused. But I was burning out. Living in a tiny apartment, barely making rent, watching the system fail over and over. I wanted something different. A real home. A place where I could make a difference in a smaller, more personal way. And marriage to a stranger seemed like the answer? Declan asked. Marriage to a stranger seemed more honest than dating men who pretended to care while really just wanting something temporary, Amelia said bluntly. At least with this arrangement, we both know what we're getting into. Partnership. Mutual benefit. No false promises. No love, Declan added. No false love, Amelia corrected. Real love, if it happens, would be different. Built on choice and time. Not just chemistry or illusion. Declan found himself nodding. That made sense. More sense than he wanted to admit. After dinner, Amelia insisted on washing dishes. Declan dried and put them away. The domestic routine felt strange but not unpleasant. When they finished, he showed her where everything was in the house, explained the heating system and backup generator, gave her the Wi-Fi password. Morning comes early, he said finally. You should rest. What time do you wake up? 4:30. Then I'll be up at 4:30, Amelia said. Good night, Declan. Good night. Alone in his room, Declan sat on the edge of his bed and tried to process the day. Nothing had gone as planned. He'd expected awkwardness, yes, but also clarity. A plain woman looking for practical security. Easy to categorize, easy to work with. Instead he had Amelia. Beautiful, sharp, determined Amelia, who noticed rotting fence posts and talked about real love versus false promises. Who looked at his isolated ranch and called it beautiful. He'd tried to send her away. Tried to give her an out. She'd refused both. Maybe Pete was right to look amused. Maybe Declan had gotten exactly what he needed, even if it wasn't what he'd ordered. Tomorrow would tell. If she really did wake up at 4:30, if she handled the brutal reality of ranch work, then maybe this arrangement could work after all. He lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to ignore the fact that for the first time in 4 years, his house didn't feel quite so empty. Declan's alarm went off at 4:30. He silenced it immediately, a habit from years of early mornings. For a moment he lay in the dark, remembering. Then he heard water running in the hallway bathroom. She was actually awake. He dressed quickly in work clothes and headed downstairs. The kitchen light was already on. Amelia stood at the stove, wearing jeans and a bright blue sweater, her hair tied back in a practical bun. The coffee maker was brewing and she was scrambling eggs. Good morning, she said, as if cooking breakfast at 4:30 in a stranger's kitchen was perfectly normal. I hope you don't mind. I found everything I needed. You didn't have to cook, Declan said, caught off guard. We both need to eat, Amelia replied. Might as well make it efficient. She served breakfast without fuss. Eggs, toast, and coffee. They ate quickly, and Declan found himself explaining the day's schedule. We've got 3 cows due to calve any day. Need to check on them first. Then we're repairing that fence section we marked yesterday. After that, feeding rounds, checking water tanks, general maintenance. Pete and the hands will be here by 6. What can I do? Amelia asked. You can help with feeding rounds, Declan said. It's straightforward. Just hauling hay and checking that all the cattle look healthy. I can do that, Amelia said. They headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. The cold hit like a slap, well below freezing. Their breath formed clouds in the beam of Declan's flashlight. Inside the calving barn, 3 pregnant cows rested in individual stalls, each monitored by a small camera system Declan had installed. This is Rosie, Clementine, and Buttercup, Declan said, checking each cow carefully. They're first-time mothers, so I'm watching them closely. You name your cattle? Amelia asked, a smile in her voice. Just the breeding stock, Declan said defensively. Makes it easier to track them. Amelia reached out carefully to stroke Rosie's nose. The cow huffed but didn't pull away. When will they calve? Any time now. Could be today, could be next week. You can't rush nature. He moved to check Clementine. If I'm not here when it happens, you call me immediately. Calving can go wrong fast. I will, Amelia promised. They spent the next 2 hours moving through the morning routine. Amelia proved to be a quick learner. She loaded hay without complaint, climbed over gates when needed, and handled the cold without whining. When Declan pointed out a cow with a slight limp, she was the one who suggested checking for hoof rot. Pete and 3 ranch hands arrived at 6. Randy Miller, Tom Reeves, and Jeff Cooper, all experienced cattlemen in their 40s. They tipped their hats to Amelia but clearly didn't know what to make of her. Mrs. Ward will be working with us, Declan announced. Treat her like any other ranch hand. Yes, boss, they chorused. They loaded tools into the back of 2 trucks and headed out to the southern fence line. The sun was finally rising, painting the snow pink and gold. At the work site, Declan started assigning tasks. Randy, Tom, you're on the west section. Jeff, Pete, take the east. Mrs. Ward, you're with me on these rotted posts. Amelia grabbed gloves and a post hole digger without hesitation. Replacing fence posts was brutal work. The ground was frozen, making every shovelful a fight. Declan attacked the first post hole, expecting Amelia to watch or make token efforts. Instead, she grabbed a digging bar and began breaking up the frozen earth around the edges. She worked steadily, rhythmically, not trying to match his strength but using leverage and persistence. You've done this before, Declan observed. One of my foster families ran a small farm, Amelia said. I spent 2 years there. Learned a lot about fence repair. She paused. They were good people. I wish I could have stayed. Why didn't you? They had trouble with the agency. Some bureaucratic issue. I got moved before it was resolved. Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Declan heard the old hurt beneath it. They worked in companionable silence after that. By mid-morning they'd replaced 2 posts and were starting on the 3rd. Declan had to admit, grudgingly, that Amelia was holding her own. Then it happened. Declan was using a pry bar to lever an old post out of the ground. The frozen earth suddenly gave way, and the post came free faster than expected. Off balance, Declan stumbled backward. The heavy post, still attached to 3 strands of barbed wire, swung directly at his head. Declan down? Amelia shouted. She lunged forward, grabbing the post mid-swing. Her momentum carried them both sideways. They crashed into the snow together, Amelia on top, the post and its dangerous wire landing harmlessly to the side. For a moment, neither moved. Declan's heart hammered in his chest. That post could have crushed his skull or torn his face open on the barbed wire. Are you hurt? Amelia asked urgently, pushing herself up to check him. Did the wire get you? No, Declan managed. I'm fine. What about you? She sat back in the snow, breathing hard. I'm okay. Pete came running over. What happened? Post came loose wrong, Declan said, getting to his feet. He offered Amelia his hand and pulled her up. She just saved me from a trip to the emergency room. Or worse, Pete said, looking at the barbed wire. That was quick thinking, ma'am. Amelia brushed snow off her jeans. Just reacted. But Declan saw her hands shaking slightly. She'd been scared, but she'd acted anyway. Fast enough and strong enough to make a difference. Thank you, he said quietly. She met his eyes and nodded. You're welcome. They finished the fence work more carefully. At lunch, the crew gathered in the ranch kitchen where Amelia had set out sandwich fixings and hot coffee. The men relaxed around her, drawn in by her easy manner and genuine interest in their work. How long have you all worked here? She asked. 3 years for me, Randy said. Found the job after my wife passed. Boss gave me a chance when I needed one. I've been here since the beginning, Pete added. Watched him turn this place from a money pit to a real operation. He pays fair and treats us right, Tom said simply. Hard to find that these days. Amelia glanced at Declan, something thoughtful in her expression. He looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. That afternoon they moved cattle to a fresh pasture. Amelia rode in the truck bed with Jeff, opening and closing gates as they went. She was competent and careful, never putting herself or others at risk. As the sun began setting, Declan checked the calving barn one more time. Amelia came with him. Clementine was showing signs of early labor, pacing her stall and looking uncomfortable. "It's starting," Declan said. "Could be hours yet, but I'll need to stay close." "What can I do?" Amelia asked. "You've done more than enough today," Declan said. "Go rest. This could take all night." "I'd like to stay," Amelia said. "If you don't mind. I've never seen a calf being born." Declan studied her. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with interest. "It's not always pretty." "I don't need pretty," Amelia said. "I need real." So they settled in to wait. Declan brought folding chairs and a thermos of coffee from the house. They sat outside Clementine's stall, monitoring her progress. The barn was warm and quiet except for the soft sounds of the cattle. "You did well today," Declan said eventually. "Better than well. You saved me from being seriously hurt." "You would have done the same," Amelia said. "Maybe. But I wouldn't have been fast enough." He paused. "I need to apologize. Yesterday I was testing you. Trying to make you quit. That wasn't fair." "I know," Amelia said. "You thought I couldn't handle it. I was wrong." "Yes, you were." She smiled slightly. "But I understand why you thought it. I'm not what you expected." "No," Declan agreed. "You're not." They fell silent again. Clementine's labor progressed slowly. Around midnight, Declan called Pete to assist. The calf was positioned correctly, but Clementine was struggling. It took all three of them to help guide the calf into the world. When the newborn finally slid free, wet and steaming in the cold air, Amelia gasped. The calf was a little heifer, perfect and healthy. Clementine immediately began licking her clean, making low, loving sounds. "She's beautiful," Amelia whispered. They watched as the calf struggled to stand on wobbly legs, falling twice before managing to stay upright. When she finally latched on to nurse, Amelia was wiping tears from her eyes. "Sorry," she said, embarrassed. "I didn't expect to get emotional." "It's okay," Declan said. "It gets me too sometimes. New life is always worth celebrating." Pete clapped them both on the shoulders. "Good work. I'm heading to bed. You two should too." But Declan and Amelia stayed another hour, making sure Clementine and her calf were both stable. Finally, near 2 in the morning, they walked back to the house together. 4:30 is going to come early," Declan said. "Worth it," Amelia replied. At the base of the stairs they paused awkwardly. The day had brought them closer, shifted something fundamental. Declan found himself wanting to say more to acknowledge the change, but he didn't have the words. "You were incredible today," he said instead. "All of it. The work saving me tonight. I'm glad you stayed." Amelia's smile was tired but genuine. "I'm glad too. See you in a few hours." "Good night, Amelia." "Good night, Declan." Alone in his room again, Declan's mind raced despite his exhaustion. He'd spent the day trying to prove Amelia couldn't handle ranch life. Instead, she'd proven she was tougher, more capable, and more dedicated than he'd dared hope. She'd saved him from injury without hesitation. She'd worked a full, brutal day without complaint. She'd cried at the beauty of new life. He'd ordered a practical bride expecting someone easy to overlook. But there was nothing easy about Amelia. She demanded to be seen, to be recognized, not through beauty or charm but through sheer competence and heart. As sleep finally pulled him under, Declan admitted something to himself. He'd been testing her to make her quit, yes, but also because he was scared. Scared that someone like her couldn't possibly want to stay. Scared that he'd fail her somehow. She'd passed his test. Now he needed to pass hers. He needed to prove he could be the partner she deserved, not just a boss assigning tasks. Tomorrow was another day. Another chance. He'd make it count. The next week passed in a blur of hard work and careful progress. Amelia woke at 4:30 every morning without fail. She learned the rhythms of the ranch with startling speed, anticipating needs and solving problems before Declan even noticed them. The ranch hands stopped treating her like a delicate visitor and started treating her like one of their own. Rosie and Buttercup both calved successfully, bringing the total to 3 healthy heifer calves. Amelia named them Daisy, Marigold, and Poppy, insisting that the baby cows deserved names just like their mothers. Declan pretended to protest but secretly entered the names in his breeding records. On Saturday night, exactly 8 days after Amelia's arrival, A winter storm knocked out the power. Declan was in his office, reviewing feed orders by lamplight when the house went dark. He heard Amelia moving around downstairs and found her in the kitchen, already lighting candles. "Generator?" she asked. "The main one is for essential systems only. Barn water pumps, freezers. The house uses backup power for lights and critical heating only. Tonight we use the wood stove." He paused. "It's going to get cold upstairs. You might want to sleep down here, closer to the heat." "What will you do?" Amelia asked. "Same," Declan admitted. "I usually drag a mattress down and sleep in front of the stove when this happens." "I'll help you bring them down," Amelia said. They worked together, moving mattresses and blankets into the living room. The wood stove was already roaring, filling the space with welcome heat. Outside, snow began falling heavily, visible in the dim glow of the security lights that ran on backup power. With their makeshift beds arranged on opposite sides of the stove, they settled in for the evening. It was barely 7 o'clock, too early for sleep. Amelia had brought down a book, but the candlelight was too dim for comfortable reading. "Tell me a story," she said suddenly. Declan looked up from his own book. "A story? About your life, your parents, how you ended up here." She set her book aside. "We're married, living together, working side by side. But I hardly know anything real about you." Declan considered refusing. He wasn't good at sharing personal things. But Amelia had earned honesty from him. "My parents met in college," he began slowly. "Dad was studying engineering, Mom was in art history. Everyone said they were too different, but they were crazy about each other. They worked hard, built a good life. Dad had a decent job at an aerospace company. Mom taught at a local community college." "Sounds nice," Amelia said softly. "It was. They were good people. Supportive, loving. When I dropped out of college to start my company, they didn't understand it, but they backed me anyway." He paused. 4 years ago they were driving to visit me in California. Truck driver fell asleep at the wheel, crossed the median. They died instantly. "I'm so sorry," Amelia whispered. "I inherited everything they had. It wasn't much by my standards, but it was everything by theirs. And I realized I'd been so focused on building my company that I'd barely seen them those last few years. Missed holidays. Cut visits short. Always promising next time." His voice roughened. Then there was no next time. The fire crackled in the silence that followed. "Is that why you bought the ranch?" Amelia asked gently. "Partly. I sold my company 6 months after they died. I had more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and none of it meant anything." He stared into the flames. "My grandparents had a small farm in Idaho. Some of my best childhood memories were visiting them. Learning to ride, helping with chores, feeling like I was part of something real." "So you bought your own version," Amelia said. "I bought 15,000 acres and a falling down house and spent 2 years learning everything I should have learned as a kid." He smiled slightly. "Pete thought I was insane. Spent the first year just keeping me from killing myself through ignorance." "But you learned," Amelia said. "I did. And somewhere along the way I stopped waking up feeling empty." Declan looked at her across the firelight. "But I was still alone. The hands go home to their families. Pete has his own place. And this ranch, this life, it's not something you can share with just anyone. Hence the arrangement," Amelia said. "Hence the arrangement." He paused. "Your turn. Tell me about those 12 foster homes." Amelia pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I was left at a hospital when I was 3 days old. No note, no name, nothing. The state named me Amelia Cross. Cross for the hospital, St. Cross Memorial, and Amelia because one of the nurses thought it suited me." Declan felt something twist in his chest. "I spent the first 5 years in one home," Amelia continued. "The Johnsons. They were older, retired, fostering as a way to stay active. They were kind but distant. When Mrs. Johnson had a stroke, I got moved. After that, it was a rotation. Some homes were fine. Some were overcrowded. 1 or 2 were bad enough that I learned to hide, to become invisible." "The farm you mentioned?" Declan prompted gently. "The Mitchells. I was 13. They ran a small organic farm, sold at farmers markets. They actually wanted me there, not just for the state check. Mrs. Mitchell taught me to cook. Mr. Mitchell taught me about animals and growing things. Their daughter was in college, but she'd come home on breaks and treat me like a little sister." Amelia's voice softened with memory. "For 2 years I thought maybe I'd finally found my place. What happened? Mr. Mitchell's mother got sick. They needed to move to care for her. They tried to keep me, fought the system, but the state said their new situation wasn't suitable for foster children." She blinked rapidly. They cried when I left. So did I. That was the last time I let myself believe I could stay anywhere. But you aged out eventually, Declan said. At 18. Got my own apartment, 3 jobs, put myself through community college. Became a social worker because I wanted to help kids like me. She laughed without humor. Turns out the system that failed me fails most kids. I spent 6 years watching children bounce through the same cycle, never getting the stability they needed. I burned out. So you decided to find your own stability, Declan said. Yes. When I saw the agency's advertisement, it seemed perfect. A real home, meaningful work, a partnership built on honesty instead of false promises. She met his eyes. I know you want it. Someone plain, someone you could overlook. But I've been overlooked my whole life, Declan. I wanted to be chosen deliberately, even if the reasons were practical. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Snow piled against the glass. Inside, the wood stove kept them warm and safe. I'm glad I didn't send you back, Declan said quietly. Me too, Amelia replied. They talked for hours after that. Small stories, shared memories, dreams they'd given up and dreams they still held. Declan told her about his grandmother's apple pie and how he'd never learned to make it. Amelia told him about sneaking books from the library and reading under blankets with a flashlight. He described his first cattle purchase and how terrified he'd been. She described her college graduation, sitting in the audience with no family to cheer for her. Around midnight, they finally settled into their respective beds. The fire had burned down to glowing coals. Declan added more wood and adjusted the damper. Declan? Amelia's voice came softly through the darkness. Yeah. Thank you for telling me about your parents. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for telling me about your life, he replied. You've survived things I can't imagine. You're stronger than you know. We both are, Amelia said. Declan lay awake long after her breathing evened into sleep. The power would come back tomorrow and they'd return to their separate rooms, their careful boundaries. But something had shifted tonight. They'd stopped being strangers playing roles and started becoming something else. Partners, yes. Friends, maybe. But also 2 people who'd both known loneliness and loss, choosing to build something better together. The arrangement had been about practicality. About filling empty spaces with useful company. But lying there in the firelight, listening to Amelia's quiet breathing across the room, Declan wondered if they'd accidentally stumbled into something more complicated. Something that felt dangerously close to connection. To caring. He'd worry about that tomorrow. Tonight, for the first time in 4 years, his house felt warm in ways that had nothing to do with the wood stove. The power came back on around noon the next day. Amelia and Declan moved their mattresses back upstairs and returned to the comfortable distance of separate rooms. But something had changed. They were easier with each other now. Conversation flowed naturally. Silences weren't awkward anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, they settled into a rhythm. Amelia proved invaluable in ways Declan hadn't anticipated. She reorganized the supply system, set up a better record-keeping process, and started researching cattle nutrition. The ranch hands loved her, and even Pete, normally gruff and reserved, smiled more when she was around. On Thursday evening, 3 weeks after Amelia's arrival, Pete knocked on the kitchen door with an unusual expression on his face. Turn on the Weather Channel, he said without preamble. Major storm coming. Declan grabbed the remote. The meteorologist's face was grave as she pointed to a massive storm system moving down from Canada. This will be the biggest blizzard to hit Montana in 20 years, she announced. Expect 2 to 3 feet of snow, wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour, and temperatures well below zero. The storm will hit tomorrow evening and last approximately 72 hours. Residents are urged to prepare immediately. 72 hours, Amelia repeated. 3 days of blizzard? Sometimes they last longer, Pete said grimly. We need to prep everything tonight and tomorrow. All day. No breaks. Declan was already making mental lists. Call the hands. Tell them to be here at 4 tomorrow morning. We're going to have to move fast. The next morning, everyone assembled before dawn. Declan laid out the plan in the barn while snow was already beginning to fall lightly, the leading edge of the storm. Priority 1. Get all the cattle into shelter or windbreak areas. Priority 2. Secure all equipment and buildings. Priority 3. Stockpile feed where we can reach it during the storm. Priority 4. Fill every water tank because pipes might freeze. He looked at each person. This is going to be brutal. Stay safe. Something seems too risky, don't do it. No property is worth your life. They divided into teams. Declan and Pete took the main herd. Randy and Tom handled the equipment. Jeff worked on water systems. Amelia coordinated supplies and maintained communication, tracking everyone's progress on a whiteboard in the barn. The work was frantic and exhausting. They used trucks, tractors, and horses to move over 300 cattle into protected areas. They secured gates, reinforced weak spots in buildings, and hauled endless loads of hay into sheltered locations. The wind picked up steadily throughout the day, and the snow went from light to moderate to heavy. Amelia was everywhere at once. She helped load hay, refilled water for the workers, ran parts between teams, and kept everyone updated on progress. When Randy's truck got stuck in a snowdrift, she was the one who brought the tractor to pull it out. By late afternoon, the storm was fully upon them. Visibility dropped to near zero. The wind screamed across the open spaces, turning snow into horizontal sheets of white. "That's it," Declan shouted over the wind as they secured the last barn door. "Everyone inside. Storm's here." The ranch hands headed to the bunkhouse, which was stocked with food and had its own generator. Declan and Amelia fought their way to the main house, faces stinging from wind-driven snow. Inside they peeled off frozen outer layers. "Is everything done?" Amelia asked, her voice hoarse from shouting all day. "Everything we can do," Declan replied. "Now we wait it out." He checked the generator, the food supplies, the emergency equipment. Everything was ready. The house would stay warm and lit. They had enough supplies for a week if needed. All they could do now was ride out the storm and hope the cattle would be okay. That evening they ate a quick meal and monitored the weather reports. The storm was intensifying, exactly as predicted. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing. Snow piled against the windows at an alarming rate. "I've never experienced anything like this," Amelia said, watching the white chaos outside. "It's impressive," Declan agreed. "Frightening but impressive. Nature showing us who's really in charge." Around 10 o'clock, the power went out again. This time, Declan wasn't surprised. They'd been running on borrowed time. The generator kicked in for essential systems, but just like before, they'd need the wood stove for heat in the main living areas. "Same routine?" Amelia asked. "Same routine," Declan confirmed. They brought mattresses down again. This time it felt less awkward, more like a familiar process. With the stove roaring and candles providing soft light, they settled in for the first night of the blizzard. But this storm was different from the previous power outage. The wind was terrifying in its intensity, shaking the entire house. Snow hammered the windows like thrown gravel. The temperature outside was 20 below zero before wind chill. With wind chill, it was nearing 50 below. Around midnight, a massive gust hit the house. Something crashed outside. "The porch," Declan said, grabbing a flashlight. "Part of the roof might have gone." "You can't go out in this," Amelia protested. "Just a look. I need to know if it's damaged the main structure." He pulled on his coat and opened the door. The wind nearly ripped it from his hands. Snow blasted into the entryway. Declan forced his way onto the porch, holding the doorframe for support. Part of the porch roof had indeed torn loose, but the main house was intact. He started to retreat inside when he saw movement near the barn. A figure struggling through the snow. "Someone's out there," he shouted to Amelia. They both went out, fighting the wind together. As they got closer, Declan recognized Jeff, the ranch hand, barely staying upright. Bunkhouse roof collapsed. Jeff shouted. "Everyone's okay, but we need shelter." Getting 5 men from the bunkhouse to the main house in near zero visibility and deadly cold was terrifying. They formed a human chain, holding onto each other, and made the 100-yard journey that felt like miles. Pete was helping Randy, who'd been hit by falling debris and had a gash on his forehead. Tom and the others were cold but uninjured. Inside the house, Amelia immediately went into crisis mode. She settled the men around the stove, checked Randy's wound, and started making hot coffee and soup. Declan examined everyone for frostbite while Pete explained what had happened. "Snow load got too heavy," Pete said grimly. "Roof just gave way. We got out fast, but Randy caught a beam." Amelia cleaned Randy's wound efficiently. "It's not deep, but it needs stitches." "I can do it," Declan said. He'd learned basic field medicine for emergencies. With Amelia's help, he stitched the gash closed while Randy gritted his teeth and stayed silent. "You're going to have a good scar," Amelia told him gently. "A story to tell." "Worth it to be alive," Randy said. With everyone safe and warming up, they redistributed blankets and found sleeping spots. The living room became a camp, with 7 people arranged around the wood stove. It was crowded and chaotic, but nobody complained. Outside, the blizzard raged on, relentless and deadly. Declan and Pete took first watch, keeping the fire going and monitoring everyone. Around 3 in the morning, Pete pulled Declan aside. "Your wife is something special," Pete said quietly. "She kept everyone calm back there. Half the men were panicking when the roof came down. She got them organized, got them moving. Probably saved lives." Declan looked at Amelia, who was asleep near the fire, her face peaceful despite the chaos around her. "I know. You're lucky," Pete added. "Real partnership is rare. Don't take it for granted." "I won't," Declan promised. The storm lasted 3 full days exactly as predicted. They took shifts watching the fire, rationed food carefully, and kept morale up with stories and conversation. Amelia taught Tom's boy, who was 19 and shy, how to play poker. Pete and Declan discussed spring planting plans. Randy recovered well from his injury, and the others stayed healthy. On the second day, when cabin fever was setting in, Amelia organized a cooking competition using their limited supplies. The men got creative and everyone laughed at the results. That evening she had them go around sharing their favorite memories. It kept spirits up and passed the time. By the third night the wind was finally dying down. On the morning of the fourth day they woke to silence. The storm had passed. Declan opened the front door to a transformed world. Snow had drifted to the roofline in some places. The porch roof hung at a crazy angle. But the sky was crystal blue, and the sun was shining brilliantly. "Let's go check the damage," Pete said. The ranch had taken a beating. The bunkhouse roof was destroyed. 2 smaller outbuildings had collapsed. Fences were buried or broken. But as they checked the cattle, the news was better than expected. They'd lost only 3 head, remarkable given the storm's severity. The rest were cold but alive, huddled in the protection they'd created. "We did good," Pete said with satisfaction. "Could have been much worse." Cleanup took days. They worked from dawn to dusk, clearing snow, repairing structures, and making sure all the animals were healthy. The community rallied, with neighboring ranchers sending crews to help. Someone brought a mobile generator to get the bunkhouse livable again. The power company restored electricity to the main house. Through it all, Declan watched Amelia. She worked alongside everyone, never complaining, always finding ways to help. The experience had bonded everyone. The ranch hands treated her like family now, and she treated them the same way. One evening, a week after the storm, Declan and Amelia finally had the house to themselves again. The hands were back in the repaired bunkhouse. Normal routines were resuming. But as they moved their mattresses back upstairs one final time, Declan realized how much he missed having Amelia close at night. "We survived," Amelia said, pausing at the top of the stairs. "We did more than survive," Declan replied. "We thrived. Because of you." Pete was right. "You kept everyone calm and organized. You might have saved lives when the bunkhouse collapsed." "We saved lives," Amelia corrected. "We did it together." Standing there in the hallway, Declan felt something shift inside him. For 3 weeks, he'd been telling himself this was just a practical arrangement. A business partnership. Shared convenience. But that was a lie. Somewhere between fence posts and newborn calves, between fireside stories and blizzard survival, Amelia had become essential to him. Not just as a worker or a housemate, but as a person he genuinely cared about. Respected. Admired. Maybe even loved. The realization terrified him. "Good night, Declan," Amelia said, heading to her room. "Good night," he replied automatically. But as he lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, Declan knew something had to change. He couldn't keep pretending this was just an arrangement. He couldn't keep maintaining distance from someone who'd become the most important person in his life. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he'd figure out what to do about the fact that he was falling in love with his practical, arranged convenience wife. Tomorrow he'd find the courage to tell her. Maybe. Actually, Declan didn't tell her the next day. Or the day after that. Every time he thought he'd found the courage, doubt crept in. What if he was misreading everything? What if she wanted to keep things practical? What if confessing feelings would ruin the comfortable partnership they'd built? So he said nothing and life continued. February arrived with more snow but no storms. The ranch settled into winter routines. Calving season continued. Fences needed constant maintenance. The work was endless but satisfying. Amelia seemed content with their arrangement. She'd taken over the household management completely, implementing systems that made everything run smoother. She'd also started helping with the ranch's financial records, discovering she had a knack for accounting. "You're overpaying for feed," she told Declan one evening, spreadsheets arranged on the kitchen table. "I found a supplier 30 miles west who's got better prices and quality." "How'd you find them?" Declan asked, impressed. "I've been networking with other ranch wives in the area," Amelia explained. There's a whole community of women who run the business side while their husbands run the cattle. They've been incredibly helpful. Ranch wives, Declan repeated. Is that how you think of yourself? Amelia looked up at him, her expression unreadable. That's what I am, isn't it? Legally and practically. Right? Declan said, hating how the word tasted. Of course. Something flickered in her eyes, but she returned to her spreadsheets. Declan retreated to his office, frustrated with himself. He'd had an opening, a chance to ask what she really wanted from this arrangement. Instead, he defaulted to the safe, practical response. The next morning, Declan was checking fence on the eastern boundary when his horse stumbled on ice. He went down hard and pain exploded through his left leg. The horse, thankfully, wasn't injured and stood waiting patiently. But when Declan tried to stand, his leg wouldn't hold weight. He radioed the barn. Pete, I'm down on the east section. Horse through me. I think my leg might be broken. On our way, Pete's voice crackled back. 20 minutes later, Pete arrived with Amelia in the passenger seat. She jumped out before the truck fully stopped. How bad? She asked, kneeling beside him in the snow. Bad enough, Declan admitted through gritted teeth. Can't put weight on it. Between Pete and Amelia, they got him into the truck. The nearest hospital was 40 miles away. Amelia sat in the back, keeping pressure on his leg to stabilize it while Pete drove carefully over the snow-packed roads. You're going to be fine, Amelia said softly. Just breathe through the pain. I've had worse, Declan lied. Sure you have, Amelia said, not believing him for a second. She held his hand and he gripped it gratefully. At the hospital, X-rays confirmed a fractured tibia. Not terrible, but bad enough that he'd be on crutches for 6 weeks and limited mobility for 8. The doctor set the bone, fitted him with a walking boot, and gave strict orders about rest. No ranch work, the doctor said firmly. I mean it. Stay off that leg except for necessary movement. Back at the ranch, Amelia and Pete helped Declan into the house and settled him on the living room couch. Pete brought down a TV and set up a laptop within easy reach. I've got the ranch, Pete assured him. Amelia's got you. We'll manage. For the first few days, Declan was miserable. He hated being useless, hated watching everyone else work while he sat inside. But Amelia was relentless in enforcing his rest. You'll heal faster if you follow orders, she said, bringing him lunch on a tray. Stop trying to sneak outside. Pete told me you asked him about doing paperwork in the barn. I can work from a chair, Declan protested. You can work from this couch, Amelia countered. Everything you need is here. Now eat. She wasn't wrong. She'd organized his laptop, brought all necessary files within reach, and set up a communication system so he could stay informed. He could still run the business side of the ranch from his couch. But it drove him crazy to watch everyone else handle his physical responsibilities. Amelia, meanwhile, stepped into roles he hadn't known she could fill. She started accompanying Pete on daily rounds, learning by doing. When a cow had trouble calving, she assisted with the birth. When the feed delivery came early, she helped unload. She's a natural, Pete told Declan during an evening check-in. Asks good questions, learns fast, never complains. You got lucky, boss. Declan watched through the window as Amelia crossed the yard in her red coat, headed to the barn for evening checks. Lucky didn't begin to cover it. 2 weeks into his recovery, late-night emergency struck. Declan woke to pounding on the door around 2 in the morning. Pete burst in looking panicked. Buttercup's in trouble, he said. Second calf, breech position. We need to get her to the vet or we'll lose both. Declan struggled to stand. Help me to the truck. You can't, Amelia said, appearing behind Pete in her robe. Your leg can't handle it. I'll go. You've never dealt with a full emergency, Declan protested. Then talk me through it by phone, Amelia said. She was already pulling on clothes. Pete will be there and you can guide us. But you physically cannot make this trip. She was right and Declan hated it. Fine. But keep the line open the whole time. They loaded Buttercup into the trailer and Amelia drove with Pete navigating. Declan stayed on the phone, listening to every development. The cow was in bad shape, stressed and exhausted from hours of labor. The vet's prepping for emergency surgery, Pete reported. 30-minute wait. Declan could hear Buttercup's distressed sounds through the phone. He could hear Amelia's voice, calm and soothing, talking to the frightened cow. For 30 minutes, she stayed in the trailer, keeping Buttercup as calm as possible until the vet was ready. The surgery took 2 hours. Declan stayed on the phone the entire time, coaching Amelia through assisting the vet. By the time it was over, dawn was breaking. Buttercup had survived and her calf was alive. You saved them, the vet told Amelia. Your quick response and steady handling made the difference. Back at the ranch, Amelia and Pete were exhausted but triumphant. Declan, who'd been awake all night directing by phone, felt a complex mix of pride and frustration. You did good, he told Amelia as she collapsed onto the couch beside him. Really good. We did good, Amelia corrected. She leaned her head back, eyes closing. You guided every step. But you executed it, Declan said. I couldn't have done this without you. The ranch couldn't have. Amelia opened her eyes and looked at him. They were sitting close on the couch, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of her shampoo mixed with barn smells. Partnership, she said softly. That's what this is, right? We balance each other. Right? Declan agreed, though the word felt inadequate. They sat in tired silence as morning light filled the room. Pete had gone to catch a few hours of sleep. The house was quiet except for their breathing. Declan, Amelia said eventually. Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you happy? She turned to face him fully. With this arrangement? With me being here? Is this what you wanted? The question caught him off guard. Why would you ask that? Because sometimes I can't tell, Amelia admitted. You're kind, you're fair, we work well together. But I don't know if you're satisfied with practical partnership or if you wanted something more. This was it. The opening he'd been waiting for. The chance to tell her the truth. I wanted practical, Declan said slowly. I convinced myself that's what I needed. Someone competent and reliable without complications. And? Amelia prompted when he paused. And I was wrong, Declan continued. Because you're not just competent and reliable. You're incredible. You've transformed this ranch, this house, and my life. You've become essential in ways I never anticipated. And somewhere along the way, I stopped wanting practical and started wanting real. Amelia's breath caught. Real meaning what? Real meaning I care about you, Declan said. Not as a convenient partner. As a person. As someone I choose every day, not because of our arrangement but because I want to. Oh, Amelia whispered. I know that's not what we agreed to, Declan added quickly. And if you want to keep things practical, I'll respect that. I just needed you to know the truth. Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, soft and genuine. I stopped being practical about 6 weeks ago, she admitted. Around the time you told me about your parents. Or maybe when you let me help with Clementine's calf. I'm not sure exactly when. But yes, Declan. I want real too. Relief and joy flooded through him. Yeah, Amelia confirmed. They were sitting very close now. Declan reached out carefully and took her hand. She intertwined her fingers with his. So what now? She asked. Now we figure out what real looks like for us, Declan said. No rush. No pressure. Just honest and together. I can do that, Amelia said. They sat together on the couch as the morning brightened outside. 6 weeks ago she'd been a stranger stepping off a plane, someone he tried to send back. Now she was the person he couldn't imagine living without. The arrangement was over. The real relationship was just beginning. And for the first time in 4 years, Declan felt completely, genuinely happy. Declan's leg healed slowly but surely over the next month. By mid-March he was off crutches and back to light work. The ranch had survived winter intact, largely thanks to Amelia and Pete's capable management. As spring approached, the local ranching community began preparing for the annual spring gathering, a tradition where neighbors came together to help each other with large projects and celebrate winter's end. This year the event was being held at the Ward Ranch. Are you sure about this? Declan asked when Pete mentioned it. That's 30 families. Maybe 100 people. Tradition is tradition, Pete said. Besides, you've got Amelia now. She'll pull it off. He wasn't wrong. When Amelia heard about the gathering, her face lit up. This is perfect, she said. A chance to really meet everyone. What can I do? Together they planned the event. Amelia coordinated with neighboring ranch women, organized food contributions, and set up activity stations. Declan arranged for equipment to be cleaned and set up demonstration areas about ranch technology. The Saturday of the gathering dawned clear and beautiful, one of those perfect spring days when Montana's harsh winters felt worth enduring. Families began arriving around 10 in the morning, trucks and cars filling the yard. Amelia wore a blue dress with boots, striking the perfect balance between practical and presentable. She greeted everyone warmly, remembering names and details with impressive accuracy. You must be Mrs. Martinez, she said to a woman with 3 children. Pete mentioned your husband helped during the blizzard. Thank you so much. Call me Rosa, the woman replied, beaming. And these are my girls, Lucia, Carmen, and little Anna. Within an hour, Amelia had met dozens of people and made them all feel welcomed. She'd organized the children into activity groups, helped the women set up food tables, and even managed to introduce several ranchers who'd never formally met despite being neighbors for years. Your wife is something special, Reverend Thomas from the local church told Declan. The community's been talking about her. Everyone's impressed. She's pretty remarkable, Declan agreed, watching Amelia help an elderly rancher to a chair. The day was full of activities. The men worked on a joint fencing project, pooling labor to repair boundary lines between properties. The women organized a seed swap and discussed gardening strategies. The teenagers helped with equipment maintenance under Pete's supervision. The younger children played games and helped with the animals. Amelia was everywhere, making sure everyone had what they needed. She prepared her famous lemonade, a recipe from one of her foster homes, and people kept coming back for refills. She'd also coordinated a potluck that featured dishes from a dozen different families. At lunch, Reverend Thomas asked for everyone's attention. I want to say a few words before we eat. This community has survived another winter. We've helped each other through storms and struggles. And we're blessed to have new members joining us. He gestured to Amelia. Mrs. Ward, you've only been here a few months, but you've already become part of this community's heart. Thank you for opening your home today. Everyone applauded. Amelia blushed but smiled graciously. After lunch, some of the older women pulled Amelia aside. Declan watched from a distance as they talked, gesturing and laughing. Later, Amelia found him checking on the fence work. I think I just got adopted by the local grandmothers, she said, amused. Mrs. Chin invited us to dinner next week. Mrs. O'Brien wants to teach me her bread recipe. And Mrs. Thompson asked when we're planning to have children. Declan nearly dropped his hammer. She asked what? Don't worry, I deflected politely, Amelia said. But it made me realize how everyone sees us. As a real couple. Not an arrangement. Does that bother you? Declan asked carefully. No, Amelia said. Actually, it feels good. Like we belong here. Together. As the afternoon wore on, the work projects wrapped up and the gathering transitioned into a social event. Someone brought out a guitar. Children ran wild in the open spaces. Adults gathered in conversation clusters, sharing stories and updates. Rosa Martinez found Amelia and Declan together. I have to tell you, when we heard Declan had gotten a mail-order bride, we were skeptical. But seeing you two together, the way you work as a team, it's lovely. My husband and I started with an arranged marriage too, actually. 30 years ago, our families decided. We barely knew each other. But we grew into love, and now I can't imagine life without him. That's beautiful, Amelia said sincerely. It takes work, Rosa continued. And choice. Every day you have to choose each other. But when you do, it builds something stronger than chemistry or passion. It builds partnership that lasts. After Rosa moved on, Amelia squeezed Declan's hand. She's right, you know. About choosing each other. I choose you, Declan said quietly. Every day. I choose you too, Amelia replied. As evening approached, Reverend Thomas found them again. Can I speak with you both for a moment? They followed him to a quieter area near the barn. The Reverend was in his 60s, kind-eyed and thoughtful. I've been in this community for 25 years, he began. I've married dozens of couples and I've counseled many through hard times. One thing I've learned is that the strongest marriages aren't always the ones that start with romance. Sometimes the best ones start with commitment and grow into love. That's what we're hoping for, Declan admitted. I can see that you're already there, Reverend Thomas said gently. The way you look at each other, the way you work together, it's clear to everyone watching. You've built something real. He paused. I wanted to offer you something. Many couples who start with practical arrangements later choose to have a blessing ceremony, a public affirmation of their commitment. If you two ever want that, I'd be honored to officiate. Declan looked at Amelia. Her eyes were bright with emotion. Thank you, she said to the Reverend. That means a lot. Just think about it, Reverend Thomas said. No pressure. But sometimes marking a transition from arrangement to real partnership helps others understand, and it helps you too. After he left, Declan and Amelia stood together watching the gathering. Families were packing up, saying goodbyes, promising to help each other again soon. Would you want that? Declan asked. A ceremony? Maybe, Amelia said softly. Not right away. But someday when we're ready to say publicly what we already know privately. That this isn't just an arrangement anymore. It's a real marriage, Declan finished. Yes, Amelia agreed. A real marriage. The last guest departed as the sun set, leaving the ranch quiet again. Declan and Amelia walked through the cleanup together, collecting trash and organizing borrowed items for return. Today was perfect, Amelia said. I've never felt so welcomed anywhere. You made it perfect, Declan replied. You have a gift for bringing people together. They finished cleanup and headed inside. The house felt different now, less like a bachelor's domain and more like a shared home. Amelia's touches were everywhere. Curtains she'd sewn, plants she'd brought in, photos she'd arranged. I've been thinking, Declan said as they sat together on the couch. About the future. About what we want to build here. What are you thinking? Amelia asked. You mentioned once that you became a social worker to help kids like you, Declan said. What if we did that here? Used the ranch to create opportunities for foster youth. Amelia's eyes widened. What do you mean? A program, Declan explained, the idea taking shape as he spoke. We bring in teenagers aging out of foster care. Teach them ranch skills, job training, give them stability and mentorship. We've got the space, the resources. We could make a real difference. That would be incredible, Amelia whispered. Do you really mean it? I do, Declan said. We'd need to research, get licensed, set up proper facilities. But we could do it. Together. Amelia threw her arms around him. Yes, absolutely yes. This is everything I've dreamed of. They held each other, and Declan realized this was the missing piece he hadn't known he needed. The ranch had purpose now beyond profit. It could be a place of healing, of second chances, of hope. Just like his marriage had become a second chance at happiness. Over the next month, Declan and Amelia threw themselves into planning their foster youth program. They researched requirements, consulted with social services, and began converting an old barn into living quarters. The project gave them shared purpose and brought them even closer together. It was during this time that Declan realized something important. They were legally married, yes. They'd committed to choosing each other. But he'd never actually proposed to Amelia. Not really. Their arrangement had been a business transaction, paperwork signed remotely. She deserved better than that. On a Saturday in late April, Declan told Amelia he needed her help checking the northern boundary. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind Montana specialized in after brutal winters. The snow was mostly gone except in shaded areas. Wildflowers were beginning to bloom. The air smelled of earth and growing things. They drove out in the truck, following rough paths through the property. Declan had scouted this location days earlier. A high overlook with a view of the entire ranch, mountains in the distance, and a sense of endless possibility. Why do we need to check the northern boundary? Amelia asked as they walked to the overlook. We don't, Declan admitted. I wanted to bring you here. Amelia looked around, taking in the view. It's beautiful. It's my favorite spot on the ranch, Declan said. I come here when I need to think. Or when I need to remember why I chose this life. They stood together in comfortable silence, the wind tugging at their hair. Finally, Declan turned to face her. Amelia, I need to tell you something. She looked at him, curious and maybe slightly concerned. We've been married for 3 months now, Declan continued. Legally, officially, practically. But I never asked you properly. I never gave you a real choice. Declan, Amelia started, but he gently held up a hand. Let me finish, he said. I ordered a bride thinking I wanted convenience. What I got was you. Brilliant, strong, kind you. You've changed everything. This ranch is more successful because of you. The house is a home because of you. My life has meaning because of you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds. This was my grandmother's ring, Declan said. My grandfather proposed with it on a hilltop not unlike this one. They were married for 58 years. I'd like you to have it if you'll accept it. Amelia's eyes were already filling with tears. I'm not asking you to marry me, Declan continued. We're already married. I'm asking you to choose it. Choose me. Choose us. Not because of our arrangement or our contract, but because you want to build a life together. A real partnership. A real marriage. A real future. He got down on one knee, holding the ring up to her. Amelia Crossward, will you marry me? For real this time. With love and choice and everything that matters. Amelia was crying openly now, happy tears streaming down her face. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Declan. I choose you. I choose us. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he stood and she threw herself into his arms. They held each other on that hilltop, the ranch spreading out below them, the future stretching ahead. When they finally pulled apart, Amelia was laughing through her tears. "I can't believe you did this," she said. "A real proposal." "You deserved one," Declan replied. "You deserve everything." They sat together on the hillside for hours talking about their dreams. The foster program they'd build. The life they'd create. Maybe, someday, children of their own. They talked about fears and hopes, about the past they'd survived and the future they'd choose. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Declan realized he was completely, perfectly happy. Not the lonely contentment he'd found when he first bought the ranch. Real happiness. The kind that comes from sharing your life with someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway. "We should head back," Amelia said eventually, though she didn't move. "Few more minutes," Declan said. "I want to remember this." So they stayed, watching the sunset together. When they finally drove back to the ranch house, Amelia kept looking at her ring, turning her hand to catch the light. "I love it," she said. "And I love that it was your grandmother's. It means something." "Everything means something with you," Declan replied. That night they called Pete to share the news. He laughed his deep, rumbling laugh. "About time you made it official," he said. "Everyone could see you two were gone for each other weeks ago." "Were we that obvious?" Amelia asked. "As a fox in a henhouse," Pete confirmed. "But in a good way. I'm happy for you both." Word spread quickly through the community. The next day, neighbors stopped by with congratulations. Rosa Martinez brought flowers. Mrs. Chin brought food. Reverend Thomas called to reiterate his offer to perform a blessing ceremony. "What do you think?" Declan asked Amelia as they stood in their suddenly very full kitchen. "Should we have a ceremony?" "I think I'd like that," Amelia said. "Nothing huge. Just the community. Our friends. A chance to say publicly what we already know." "When?" Declan asked. "Summer," Amelia decided. "June. Give us time to plan and to get the barn conversion finished. We can combine it with a program launch celebration." Declan kissed her forehead. "Perfect." The next 2 months flew by in a flurry of activity. They completed the barn conversion, creating a dormitory space for 6 teenagers with a common area, kitchen, and office. They got licensed as a foster program. They hired a part-time social worker to help with coordination and counseling. And they planned their blessing ceremony. Amelia chose a simple green dress. Declan wore his best suit. They wrote their own vows, promising to choose each other, to work together to build a life of purpose and love. Reverend Thomas officiated in the newly converted barn, with the community packed in to witness. When Declan said, "I choose you today and every day after," Amelia was crying again. When Amelia said, "You gave me a home and a purpose and a love I never expected," Declan felt his own eyes sting. They exchanged rings again, this time with witnesses and meaning. When Reverend Thomas pronounced them united in the eyes of God and community, everyone cheered. The celebration afterward was joyous. Music, dancing, food, and laughter filled the ranch. As the evening wore on, Pete pulled Declan aside. "Your grandparents would be proud," Pete said quietly. "You've built something real here. Something that matters." "Thanks to Amelia," Declan said. "Thanks to both of you," Pete corrected. "Partnership is what makes it work." As the last guest departed and the sun set on their blessing day, Declan and Amelia stood together looking at the renovated barn. "We did it," Amelia said. "We're ready for our first participants." "Scared?" Declan asked. "Terrified," Amelia admitted. "But also excited. This is going to change lives." "It already has," Declan said, pulling her close. "Mine for one." They walked back to the house hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. The practical arrangement had become a real marriage. The empty ranch had become a home. And together they were about to give other young people the chance Amelia never had. A place to belong. The first participant arrived on a sunny Monday in early July. Sophie Turner was 16 years old, carried one duffel bag, and wore an expression of defensive hostility that Amelia recognized immediately. She'd worn the same expression in countless foster homes. The social worker, Patricia Hughes, made introductions. "Sophie, this is Declan and Amelia Ward. They run this ranch program. Declan, Amelia, this is Sophie. She's aging out of the system in 2 years and needs job skills and stability." Sophie's eyes darted around, taking in the barn apartment, the ranch, the open space. "This is weird," she said flatly. "Why would anyone do this for free?" "Because I grew up in foster care too," Amelia said simply. 12 different homes. I know what it's like to never feel safe or wanted. We're hoping to create something different here. Sophie's defensive expression cracked slightly. You were in the system? Until I aged out at 18, Amelia confirmed. Worked 3 jobs to survive. Put myself through college. It was hard and I had no support. We want to give you what I didn't have. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then, what's the catch? No catch, Declan said. You work hard, learn ranch skills and follow basic rules. In exchange you get room, board, training and support. When you leave here in 2 years you'll have job skills, references and savings. Plus, if you need it, you'll have people who care about your future. Nobody's ever cared about my future, Sophie said, her voice flat. We do, Amelia said firmly. Starting today. Getting Sophie settled took patience. She was suspicious of kindness, expecting it to be conditional. She tested boundaries constantly those first few weeks. But slowly, steadily she began to relax. Declan taught her ranch work with the same patient precision he'd used with Amelia. Sophie proved to be a natural with horses, developing a special bond with an older mare named Honey. Amelia taught her cooking and basic household management. Pete showed her equipment maintenance and repair. By August, Sophie had stopped expecting to be sent away. She started smiling occasionally. She asked questions about college, about careers, about possibilities. One evening, she and Amelia were cooking dinner together when Sophie suddenly spoke. I'm sorry I was such a brat at first. You weren't a brat, Amelia said. You were protecting yourself. I understand that. Nobody's ever been this nice without wanting something, Sophie said quietly. I kept waiting for the real reason. The hidden agenda. The real reason is that we care, Amelia said simply. That's it. You deserve stability and opportunity. We're lucky to be in a position to provide it. Why though? Sophie pressed. You guys have money. You could do anything. Why foster kids? Amelia was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because the system failed me over and over. I bounced between homes, never got to keep relationships, never felt truly safe. I became a social worker to fix it, but the system is too broken. This is our way of making a difference where we can. One person at a time. You really mean that? Sophie said, wonder in her voice. I really do, Amelia confirmed. In September, 2 more participants arrived. Marcus Johnson, 17, angry at the world and grieving his mother's recent death from cancer. And Keisha, wait, I can't use those names. Let me restart with allowed names. In September, 2 more participants arrived. Trevor Jackson, 17, angry at the world and grieving his mother's recent death from cancer. And Beth Chin, 15, brilliant but struggling with anxiety after years of unstable placements. The dynamic shifted with more people. Sophie became a leader, helping the newer participants adjust. Trevor was difficult at first, channeling his grief into defiance. Beth was so quiet she was almost invisible. If you're moved by this story of second chances and found family, hit subscribe and drop a comment about whether you believe in the power of community to change lives. Your engagement helps share this message of hope with others who need it. Amelia and Declan divided responsibilities based on their strengths. Declan handled the practical skills training and physical work. Amelia managed the emotional support and life skills education. Together they created structure and safety. Trevor's breakthrough came during calving season. A cow rejected her newborn calf, refusing to nurse. The calf would die without intervention. Trevor spent 3 days bottle feeding it every few hours, barely sleeping. When the calf finally thrived, Trevor broke down crying. I couldn't save my mom, he told Declan. But I saved this calf. Your mom would be proud, Declan said gently. You're strong, Trevor. You're going to be okay. After that, Trevor's anger began transforming into purpose. He threw himself into ranch work, learning everything he could. He started talking about becoming a veterinarian. Beth's breakthrough was quieter. She started helping Amelia with bookkeeping and discovered a talent for numbers. When she organized an entire month of records in one afternoon, Amelia praised her effusively. You're incredibly smart, Amelia told her. Have you thought about college? People like me don't go to college, Beth said automatically. People like you absolutely go to college, Amelia corrected. We're going to make sure you have that option. By October, the program was running smoothly. The 3 teenagers had found their rhythms and were thriving. The community embraced them, with local families inviting them to events and several businesses offering part-time work opportunities. Declan and Amelia developed their own rhythm too. They were partners in every sense now, balancing responsibilities and supporting each other through challenges. Their marriage had deepened from choice to commitment to genuine love. One evening, after all three teenagers were in bed and the ranch was quiet, Declan found Amelia in their bedroom staring at something in her hands. "What's that?" he asked. She held up a pregnancy test. "Positive." "I'm pregnant," Amelia whispered. "We're going to have a baby." Declan felt his heart stop and restart. "Really? Really?" Amelia confirmed. "I know we didn't plan this right away with the program just starting and everything being so new, but it's perfect," Declan interrupted. He pulled her into his arms. "You're going to be an amazing mother. You're going to be an amazing father," Amelia replied, tears streaming down her face. They held each other, overwhelmed with joy and possibility. Their arranged marriage had become a real partnership. Their empty ranch had become a home for lost teenagers. And now they were starting a family of their own. "Should we tell the kids?" Declan asked. "Not yet," Amelia decided. "Let's wait until the second trimester, make sure everything's stable. But yes, we'll tell them. Their family too." Over the following months, life continued its beautiful, chaotic rhythm. The teenagers grew and learned. Amelia's pregnancy progressed healthily. The ranch thrived under their combined management. In January, they welcomed two more participants. Carlos Rodriguez, 16 and recently released from juvenile detention for a nonviolent offense, and Taylor Kim, 17, who'd run away from multiple placements but was ready to try stability one more time. With 5 teenagers in the program, the barn was full of life and noise. Arguments happened. Conflicts arose. But so did laughter, growth, and genuine caring. The teenagers started looking out for each other, creating their own found family. Sophie became like a big sister to the newer kids. Trevor appointed himself head of animal care. Beth helped everyone with homework. The new arrivals brought fresh energy and perspectives. Amelia announced her pregnancy in February, when she was visibly showing. The teenagers' reactions varied from excitement to concern to curiosity. "Does this mean you won't have time for us anymore?" Carlos asked quietly. "It means our family is growing," Amelia said firmly. "There's always room for more love. Always. You all are just as important as this baby. Nothing changes that. Except you're going to be huge and cranky," Sophie teased, trying to lighten the moment. "Probably," Amelia agreed with a laugh. Fair warning to everyone. The community rallied around the growing Ward family. Baby showers were thrown. Advice was offered. Supplies materialized. And through it all, the teenagers helped, painting the nursery and assembling furniture and arguing good-naturedly about baby names. "I vote for Bruce," Trevor said. "That's a terrible baby name," Beth protested. "What if it's a girl?" Taylor asked. "Then Bruce is really terrible," Sophie declared, and everyone laughed. In those moments, watching the teenagers joke and plan and genuinely care, Declan felt profound gratitude. They'd built something real here. Something that mattered. A place where second chances became new beginnings. And the best part? They were just getting started. Spring arrived again, marking a full year since Amelia's first arrival at the ranch. The landscape transformed from white to green, and new life burst forth everywhere. Amelia was 8 months pregnant now, moving more slowly but still insisting on being involved in everything. The foster program had established itself successfully. All 5 current participants were thriving. Trevor had been accepted to Montana State University for pre-veterinary studies. Beth had a full scholarship to community college for accounting. Sophie was considering several job offers from local ranches. Carlos and Taylor still had time before aging out, but both showed tremendous growth. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in early May, Patricia Hughes arrived unannounced with a teenage girl Declan and Amelia had never seen before. "Sorry to drop by without warning," Patricia said. "But I have an unusual situation. This is Nicole Foster. She's 16 and aging out next year. She's been in 23 different placements since birth." Nicole stood with her arms crossed, wearing black clothes and an expression of complete emotional shutdown. Her eyes were flat, expecting nothing and hoping for less. 23 placements, Amelia repeated softly. Even in her 12 homes, she'd never experienced that level of instability. "No one could handle her," Patricia explained while Nicole stared at the ground. "She's been labeled difficult, defiant, troubled. But honestly, I think she's just given up. When I heard about your program, I thought maybe one last chance might make a difference." "We're actually at capacity," Declan started to say. But Amelia was already stepping forward. "We'll make room," she said firmly. She'd seen herself in all their participants, but she saw herself most clearly in Nicole's defeated posture. "Nicole, welcome to the Ward Ranch. Let me show you around." Nicole didn't respond, but she followed when Amelia gestured. Declan and Patricia exchanged glances. You sure about this? Patricia asked quietly. She's been in legal trouble, run away multiple times, and has anger issues. Plus, you're about to have a baby. That's exactly why we can help, Declan said, trusting Amelia's instinct. We remember what it's like to need someone who wouldn't give up. Patricia left with cautious optimism. Inside the barn apartment, Amelia was introducing Nicole to the other teenagers. The response was mixed. Sophie was welcoming. Beth looked nervous. Trevor was suspicious. Carlos and Taylor were waiting to see how things developed. You'll bunk with Taylor, Amelia explained, showing Nicole a room. Rules are simple. Show up for work assignments, attend school or GED classes, no drugs or alcohol, treat everyone with respect. Follow those and you've got a place here. For how long? Nicole asked, speaking for the first time. Her voice was flat, emotionless. As long as you need, Amelia said. Minimum commitment is until you age out. But honestly, we stay connected with our participants even after they leave. This is a permanent support system if you want it to be. Nobody wants me permanent, Nicole said. I did 12 foster homes, Amelia replied quietly. I thought nobody wanted me either. Turns out I just hadn't found the right place yet. Maybe you haven't either. Maybe this is it. Nicole's armor cracked slightly. You really were in foster care? Really? Amelia confirmed. Ask Sophie. She'll tell you I'm not lying. I understand what it's like to protect yourself by pushing everyone away. It's safer than hoping and getting disappointed again. Then why risk it? Nicole challenged. Because the alternative is giving up, Amelia said simply. And I don't do that. I'm guessing you don't either, or you wouldn't still be here. The first week with Nicole was difficult. She tested every boundary, broke several rules, and got into shouting matches with Trevor and Carlos. But Declan and Amelia responded with firm, consistent expectations and unconditional support. When Nicole stole food and hoarded it in her room, Amelia didn't punish her. Instead, she gently explained that food was always available and there was no need to hide it. When Nicole picked a fight with Trevor that nearly turned physical, Declan separated them and talked to Nicole about healthy ways to express anger. When Nicole skipped work assignments, Pete assigned her to shadow him personally, making it impossible to hide. Slowly, Nicole's defenses began lowering. It started with small things. She helped Beth with a difficult math problem. She complimented Sophie's cooking. She spent an afternoon brushing horses without being asked. 2 weeks after her arrival, Nicole found Amelia in the nursery, folding tiny baby clothes. Can I help? Nicole asked awkwardly. Sure, Amelia said, making space. I appreciate it. They folded in silence for a while. Then Nicole spoke quietly. My mom was pregnant when she gave me up. Gave me up at birth, I mean. I've always wondered if she had other kids after me. If they got to stay. I don't know your mother's situation, Amelia said gently. But I know giving up a child is often the hardest decision a person can make. Sometimes it comes from impossible circumstances, not lack of love. Or maybe I was just defective from the start, Nicole said bitterly. You're not defective, Amelia said firmly. She set down the onesie she was folding and turned to face Nicole. You survived 23 placements. You're still standing. You're still here, still trying. That's not defective. That's incredibly strong. Nicole's eyes filled with tears, the first emotion she'd shown. I don't feel strong. Strong people rarely do, Amelia said. They just keep going anyway. A week later, Amelia went into labor. It was 3 a.m, and Declan was rushing around getting supplies while calling the midwife they'd hired for a home birth. The commotion woke everyone in the barn. All 6 teenagers appeared at the main house, concerned and wanting to help. Pete organized them, assigning tasks and keeping everyone busy and calm. Sophie made coffee. Trevor and Carlos prepared the birthing room under the midwife's direction. Beth gathered supplies. Taylor and Nicole held Amelia's hands during contractions. The labor lasted 8 hours. The teenagers took shifts supporting both Amelia and Declan. When the baby finally arrived, a healthy girl with a powerful set of lungs, everyone crowded into the room to meet her. What's her name? Sophie asked. Amelia and Declan had discussed this. They'd chosen a name with meaning. Hope, Amelia said, holding her daughter close. Her name is Hope Elizabeth Ward. Hope, Nicole whispered. That's perfect. Over the following weeks, the teenagers embraced their roles as Hope's extended family. They took turns helping with feeding, changing, and entertaining the baby. Trevor was surprisingly gentle, having learned from bottle-feeding calves. Beth created a detailed schedule for baby care that everyone followed. Sophie proved to be a natural at soothing Hope when she cried. But it was Nicole who formed the strongest bond. She spent hours just watching the baby, marveling at how someone so small could be so loved and wanted. "What's it like?" she asked Amelia one day while helping with laundry. "Having someone who's yours. Really yours." "It's terrifying and wonderful," Amelia said honestly. "You love them so much it hurts. And you do anything to protect them and give them a good life." "I wish my mom had felt that way," Nicole said quietly. "Maybe she did," Amelia suggested. "Maybe that's exactly why she made the choice she did. To give you a chance at a better life even though it broke her heart." Nicole was quiet for a long time. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything." "I've been thinking about finding her," Nicole admitted. "My birth mother. Patricia said I could when I turn 18. I'm scared though. What if she doesn't want to see me?" "Then you'll survive," Amelia said gently. "Just like you've survived everything else. But what if she does want to see you? What if she's been hoping for that day? You won't know unless you try. Would you help me?" Nicole asked. "When the time comes?" "Absolutely," Amelia promised. "Whatever you need." That summer, as Hope grew and the ranch hummed with life and purpose, Declan and Amelia watched their expanded family with deep satisfaction. They'd created something extraordinary here. Not perfect but real. A place where broken kids could heal and lost teenagers could find direction. One evening, with Hope asleep in her bassinet and all 6 teenagers gathered in the main house for movie night, Declan pulled Amelia aside. "Look at this," he said, gesturing to the scene. Trevor and Nicole were arguing good-naturedly about which movie to watch. Sophie was making popcorn while teaching Beth her technique. Carlos and Taylor were setting up the viewing area. "This is family. This is everything," Amelia agreed, leaning into him. They'd come so far from that first awkward meeting at the airfield. From practical arrangement to real partnership to this. A ranch full of second chances, a house full of love, and a future full of hope. And they were just getting started. 2 years passed in what felt like both an eternity and a moment. The foster program expanded to 2 separate houses, accommodating 12 teenagers at a time. Declan and Amelia hired additional staff, including a full-time counselor and 2 more ranch instructors. The program's success attracted attention, with social services referring their most challenging cases, knowing the wards wouldn't give up. Hope grew from an infant to a curious toddler, adored by an ever-rotating cast of teenage siblings who taught her to walk, to say her first words, and to feed chickens before she could fully control her own steps. She'd never know a life without extended family, without the constant reminder that love could be chosen and built, not just given by biology. Trevor graduated from Montana State with honors, then returned to work at the ranch while applying to veterinary schools. "This place saved my life," he told Declan. "Now I want to give back." He moved into a small cottage on the property, becoming the program's animal care director. Beth earned her accounting degree and started managing the ranch's financial operations full-time. She also handled the program's complex funding and grants, her brilliant mind finally given the opportunity it deserved. Sophie married a neighboring rancher's son and started her own small cattle operation on leased land. She visited weekly, often bringing her young stepdaughter to play with Hope and volunteering with the newest participants. Carlos completed his GED and discovered a passion for construction during barn renovations. He apprenticed with a local contractor, then returned to build 2 additional housing units on the ward property. He was saving money to start his own contracting business. Taylor found her calling in teaching and was working toward an education degree at the community college. She led study sessions for current participants and tutored struggling students. And Nicole, who'd arrived broken and hopeless, transformed into the program's fiercest advocate. She reconnected with her birth mother through Patricia's help, discovering that her mother had been 15 and homeless when she gave birth. The reunion was complicated but healing for both. Nicole chose to major in social work, determined to reform the foster system from within. She still lived on the ranch, helping with new arrivals who reminded her of herself. On a Saturday in late June, the ranch held its annual summer gathering. But this year was special. It marked 5 years since Amelia's arrival and 3 years since the foster program's launch. The community came out in force to celebrate. More than 200 people filled the property. Current and former participants mingled with neighbors, supporters, and volunteers. Food tables groaned under the weight of potluck contributions. Music played. Children ran wild in the open spaces. Laughter filled the air. Declan and Amelia stood together watching the celebration, Hope balanced on Declan's hip and tugging at his ear. "Daddy down," Hope demanded. "Want Sophie?" "She's bossy," Declan observed as he set her down. Hope immediately toddled towards Sophie at remarkable speed. "Wonder where she gets that," Amelia said dryly. "No idea," Declan replied with mock innocence. Patricia Hughes found them, looking official in her professional clothes despite the casual setting. "I wanted to thank you both personally. Do you know how many kids you've helped?" 18 successfully completed the program, Amelia said. 12 currently enrolled. 30 lives changed, Patricia corrected. 30 kids who had given up hope, who the system had labeled failures, now thriving. Your success rate is unprecedented. Other states are studying your model. We just provide structure and support, Declan said uncomfortably. He'd never been comfortable with praise. You provide love, Patricia countered. That's what makes the difference. Every kid who comes through here learns they're worth caring about. That's revolutionary. After Patricia moved on, Reverend Thomas approached with Rosa Martinez. Both were beaming. We have a surprise, Rosa announced. The community has been planning this for months. She gestured, and Pete stepped forward with a large framed document. It was a plaque. By community vote, Pete read, we're officially naming this the Hope Ranch. In recognition of Declan and Amelia Ward's dedication to providing hope and second chances to young people in need. May this ranch continue to be a beacon of light for generations to come. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. You didn't have to do this. We wanted to, Reverend Thomas said. What you've built here matters. It deserves to be recognized and remembered. The ceremony continued with speeches from former participants. Trevor talked about how the ranch taught him to channel grief into purpose. Beth described finding confidence through Amelia's belief in her abilities. Sophie shared how learning ranch skills gave her the courage to pursue her own dreams. Then Nicole stepped forward. She'd been nervous about public speaking but insisted on participating. 5 years ago, Nicole began, her voice shaking slightly, I was in my 23rd foster home. I'd given up. I didn't think anyone would ever want me around. Then I met Amelia and Declan, and they were different. They didn't give up when I tested them. They didn't send me away when I messed up. They just kept showing up, kept believing in me until I finally believed in myself. She paused, composing herself. This ranch gave me a family. Not just Amelia and Declan, but everyone here. Sophie, Trevor, Beth, Carlos, Taylor, all the other participants, the staff, the volunteers. You all taught me that family isn't just biology. It's choice. It's showing up. It's love in action. Nicole's voice strengthened. I'm starting social work school in the fall. I'm going to work to change the system that failed so many of us. But I'll always come back here because this is home. Real home. The first and only one I've ever had. When Nicole finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. Amelia was openly crying. Declan had to wipe his eyes. Hope, sensing something important, abandoned Sophie and toddled back to her parents. As the sun began setting, casting golden light across the property, the crowd began moving toward the dining area. But Declan and Amelia stayed where they were for a moment, watching their extended family gather. Do you remember what you said that first day? Amelia asked quietly. At the airfield? I said a lot of things that day, Declan admitted. Most of them stupid. You said I wasn't what you ordered, Amelia reminded him. I was an idiot, Declan said immediately. You were scared, Amelia corrected gently. Scared that someone like me couldn't possibly want to stay. Scared that you'd somehow mess it up. I was terrified, Declan agreed. Still am sometimes. Terrified I don't deserve this. You hope all of it. You deserve every bit of happiness we've built, Amelia said firmly. And so do I. And so does every kid who comes through this program. That's what we're teaching them, that everyone deserves love and stability and second chances. Hope tugged on Declan's hand. Daddy hungry. Food. Food, Declan agreed. He scooped her up and they walked toward the gathering as a family. The dinner was magnificent. Speeches were made. Toasts were raised. Plans were discussed for the program's future expansion. Someone suggested creating an alumni network. Someone else proposed a scholarship fund. Ideas flowed freely, fueled by community support and shared purpose. As the evening wound down and stars appeared overhead, Nicole found Declan and Amelia one last time. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. For not giving up on me. For showing me what family really means. Thank you for letting us in, Amelia replied. For trusting us. For choosing to stay. Always, Nicole promised. This is home. Your family. Nothing changes that. After she left, Declan and Amelia remained outside, Hope asleep against Declan's shoulder. The property was quiet now except for distant conversation and laughter from the cleanup crew. "We did it," Amelia said softly. "We built something real." "We did," Declan agreed. "A ranch full of second chances. A house full of love. A family built on choice. And it all started with a practical arrangement," Amelia mused. "You ordered a plain mail-order bride expecting convenience. Instead I got you," Declan said. "Beautiful, brilliant, determined you. You changed everything. The ranch, the program, my entire life. You made it all possible." "We made it possible," Amelia corrected. "Together. That's the whole point. Partnership. Choosing each other. Building something that matters." They stood together under the Montana stars, their sleeping daughter between them, their chosen family gathered around them, their future stretching ahead with limitless possibility. Declan had ordered a bride thinking he wanted someone easy to overlook. Someone practical and convenient. Someone who'd fit into his life without complicating it. Instead he'd found Amelia, who refused to be overlooked, who complicated everything in the best possible way, who turned his empty ranch into a home and his lonely existence into a life worth living. He tried to send her back that first day, certain she was a mistake. The best mistake he'd ever almost made. Because Amelia hadn't just survived those 12 foster homes. She'd learned from them. Learned resilience and adaptability and the power of hope. Learned that family was choice, that love was action, that second chances could become new beginnings. And she'd brought all of that to his ranch, his life, his heart. "I love you," Declan said quietly. "More than I knew was possible." "I love you too," Amelia replied. "Thank you for choosing me. For giving me a real home. For building this life with me. Thank you for staying," Declan said. "For refusing to quit. For being exactly what I needed even when I didn't know it." They stood together as the stars wheeled overhead and the Montana night grew cold. Inside the house, lights glowed warm and welcoming. Around the property, their extended family continued celebrating the life they'd all built together. A life where kindness, hope, and love always led the way. Where second chances became new beginnings. Where a practical arrangement transformed into the realest love story of all. The bride who wouldn't break had become the foundation of everything that mattered. And the lonely billionaire who tried to send her away had become the man who couldn't imagine life without her. Sometimes the best things in life weren't what you ordered. They were what you chose. What you built. What you created through showing up every single day and choosing love over fear, hope over despair, and partnership over loneliness. They'd ordered convenience and received everything that mattered. And that made all the difference.